Good morning and welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. It's our pleasure always to have Mr. Robert Giuseppe on set with us, industrial relations expert. And this morning he'll be talking about the employee and employer's rights as it pertains to contracts. Good morning and welcome.
Good to be here and good morning to you, my dear.
I look forward to chatting with you. It's always so enlightening.
Yeah, well, I am glad to be here because I think it's most important that we keep this conversation going as far as workers' rights are concerned. And we are seeing at this point in time a sort of disadvantage that workers are facing in this present era of economic change and so whatever they want to call it, you know. They have all their big names for it. But the whole thing is that the whole democratic system in Trinidad and Tobago, as far as workers are concerned, we see that workers are at a total disadvantage. Okay? I'm just giving you a sort of history of what is really going on, a brief history, where we see that even the government, the biggest employer, they have an employment system that most of the workers do not have collective agreements, do not have collective agreements. Therefore, you can understand that the largest employer in our national community does not have workers who have collective agreements. It's still some old-time, archaic, sort of construction that is practiced, and we will want to find out why is it that this is still existing. And then we see the whole idea of where the employer class is coming from. The employer class is coming from to always have the advantage against the working and common people. They seem to ensure that whatever government is in power, the employer class, which includes government at that level as the employer, has a sort of tendency to ensure that their will prevails, their will prevails. You see, many of the workers are not unionized, okay? Many of the workers are not unionized. The vast majority of workers are not unionized. So there is no equity in this, our present system, between the working class who have to work and the employers who have to employ them. The employers have a great advantage over the working and common people.
What are some of the disadvantages that come?
Well, in terms of some of the old democratic process, okay? The whole democratic process is that democracy must exist right through in everything that we do as far as industrial relations are concerned. And this is where we do not see a democracy existing, right? Workers are unable, most workers, including yourself must be, unable to sort of go through a process where there's equity in terms of the relationship. And that is why I wanted to look at the contract work, the contract worker, which is getting very popular. And you know why? Because the employer has a big advantage when we look at the whole contract work system. You only have contract work, here?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Well, you see, the whole thing on contract work, and if it exists here too, because you are not able to really produce and perform as you think. I have a matter at the Ministry of Labor now, right? They're supposed to call me today. Where this lady, like yourself, working for 4.5 years in a contract work system, right? And there's one day before the end of the contract, she was told verbally, we don't want to hear again, right?
The contract ended.
The contract ended, but we don't want to hear again. This contract is real work that has to be done. Not like I contract you to import better equipment. So we said, therefore, when all the equipment is come down and you put up the equipment, you can go. Yeah. This is ordinary work that the person does. Like how you interviewed me, every morning you have to do that. It doesn't stop, okay? I'm just giving you the example. It doesn't stop. I don't hope I'm putting you in no kind of uncomfortable position, okay? But the whole thing is, this is what they are trying now. They are trying to ensure there is no job and income security that a worker really has. The worker always has to be on the sort of begging end. There's no equity, as I said, in the democratic system, in industrial relations at this point in time. And there we are now trying to sort of work out how are we to convince the employer, both in the private and public sector, that there has to be a change. There has to be more job and income security, okay? You have to have job and income security for you all to be able to produce, right? And that is why when you hear those nonsensical employers, some of them talking about how the productivity in Trinidad is very low. Why it is very low? Because you're not secure in your job, you know? You are not secure in your job, so you just kind of breaks in and making sure that they get the least out of you, because they want to ensure that they could do with you whatever they want as far as your job security is concerned.
So it works against them in a sense. If
it works against them, yes,
motivated
yes,
to work.
yes. If I don't have a job, you know, there are some people who are definitely contract workers. They build their whole life on that. But the vast majority of the working class are employees, right? They are they are employees. And now this system now, over the past 10 or 15 years, have been graduating where normal employees are becoming contract workers now. And nobody seems to be taking that seriously, you know. You have as I said, you have government workers, right? Government workers with no collective agreement. Thousands and thousands of government workers don't have collective agreements. The only sort of protection we have is the industrial court. The industrial court, notwithstanding the laws, are not in favor of contract workers. You could fire them. You could fire them just so because most of them do not know what to do afterwards. They just look for a next work somewhere. The industrial court seems to have the sort of understanding that, okay, you're working for 4 years. As far as the industrial court is concerned, in many instances, I will show you what the industrial court will do. In many instances, the industrial court will say 4 years, and you tell me that you could just fire me, just tell me in a letter that my services are no longer needed. And the industrial court is starting over the past, let's say, 3 or 4 years. Instill that kind of thought in the employer's mind. That, yeah, you figure you have them as some kind of semi-slave, you know, some kind of semi-slave that you can get rid of them whenever you think is right for you. But the industrial court, who waits for them, are starting to turn around. So employers are getting more conscious how they are treating with industrial relations environment. And because of that, we are seeing how the industrial court is going. So we now have to push to make sure the government, you know, get the laws to go in line with the thinking of the court.
But as it stands now, that scenario that you described, where somebody work at the end of the 4-year period being on contracts that have been renewed, and the employer comes and says, okay, well, your services are no longer required at the end of that 4-year period.
Yes.
Is it unlawful?
It's unlawful because I will win it in the court, right? It's as far as certain employers are concerned, they figure they're acting because they are the law, you know, they figure they are the law, right? When they were called to the Ministry of Labor, in this instance, they had no answer. They had no answer when we were able to show them. We were able to show them that, listen, these are the judgments of the court, you know. The court have seen these matters already, and you all insist on carrying on the same type of foolish and degrading behavior, right? To make people, ordinary human beings, look like they don't do anything. They have to move at your will and fancies. And that is why I am saying there's no real democracy in the industrial relations system.
So let's get into the detail of the contract workers and their agreement. Are they entitled to benefits such as sick leave, casual days, maternity leave, and that sort of thing?
Well, according to their contract, let's take example, one of the matters I'm dealing with. The contract workers do not fall in line with those sort of conditions. Okay, they might have leave, right? They might have leave. I don't think in any instance that this the other issues like maternity benefits and all sort of things like that, I don't think contract workers fall under that sort of category.
Okay. Well, What about workers who have had continuous fixed-term contracts and have been retrenched? Are they entitled to severance benefits?
Well, retrenchment, they have to fall under the law. There's a Retrenchment Act. And if their contract, the terms and conditions of the contract have severance benefits in it. And this is it. They do not have a real agreement. Their agreement is worked out by the employer. You're looking for a little end. You say, okay, they'll give you for a little 2 years. You take it. So therefore, you take a contract that is inferior in most circumstances to what somebody might have under a collective agreement.
What about promotional opportunities for a contract worker who's currently studying and they just probably would have attained a degree, a master's degree or whatever the case is? Should they be allowed or in any way debarred from getting a promotional opportunity?
Well, you see, you are restricted to your contractual arrangements. You are restricted to your contractual arrangements. So if these provisions do not provide for certain things like that, you really do not qualify.
Right, so let's look at 3 myths that I found, and I'd like you to probably shed some light. The services of a contract worker can be terminated for any reason. Is that true?
It is true how they operate, how the employer class operate, but it's not true when it reaches the industrial court.
Okay.
It becomes an illusion of the imagination. Understand?
Contract workers do not have the same rights to statutory or employment benefits as permanent workers.
Yes, of course. They hardly have any rights. They have a right to come to work. Right? They have a right. The employer has all the rights in those circumstances. Let me explain this situation quite clearly. Right? You see, the whole idea of a contract worker is to ensure that you do not have a real democratic, a democratic edge as far as your relationship between you and the employer. You are always the underclass. You are always the underclass. You have to sort of ensure, like when your contract comes to an end, right? And let's say you're doing the same work. You're doing the same work here. And when your contract is coming to an end, and therefore there have to be somebody who has to do the kind of work you are doing, right? Because it's a permanent work. It's a permanent work that you are doing.
Unless the company restructures.
The company restructures, but restructures how?
What if they don't have a morning show again?
If it don't have a morning show again.
Yeah.
So therefore, if it don't have a morning show again, where are we going from here? If you have a real contract, therefore your union will come in and say, listen, you all think.
Then what if you don't have a union?
Yeah, but I'm just showing you, your union will come in and say, listen, let's sit down and negotiate and see how best we can deal with this situation. You don't want to have a morning show. Why you don't want to have a morning show? You cannot argue that by yourself, you know. They will just tell you because you are not represented by any union. They just tell you that they're not having a morning show again and bye-bye, you go. Is that correct? After I'm serving 3 and 4 and 5 years doing this work, you tell me there's no morning show again and send me away.
But they have a right to do that or no?
No, they have a right under the system. It's not what they have a right to do. It's how you sort of demonstrate your sort of candid feelings in terms of the working class people and the so-called owners of the workers. Yeah.
Mr. Giuseppe, always such a pleasure chatting with you. You always pick on me and use my situation as an example. I don't know why.
Because you're a worker. I got fired 3 times already. You know. Right, so I know I know about the experience.
Let's try to keep me employed.
We will try our best. And if they try to get with you, we will win it in industrial court.
Thank you so much. Have a great holiday.
You have a great, I will start to enjoy the holidays already.
We take a short break, a lot more when we return. Stay tuned.